Yeah.
Do you want to take questions about like Islamic law?
Oh, the book will, I don't know, probably come out in about 2 years.
Oh, sorry.
The reason being is because I could only write it for about 2 hours a day. I could reserve 2-hour block every day to write. That's all I have. Because I have a lot of work at the university. I'm also building 10 houses right now because I got into a little bit of a side business so I could get my daughters married and through college someday. The university jobs don't pay a whole lot. And in addition to that, I'm speaking like twice a semester, and I'm trying to raise 3 daughters. The oldest one is as wild as could be, and she's intellectually she's an extremely great challenge. And I'm trying to be a good husband to my wife. And with all that going, I really only have about 2 hours a day to do what I'm doing. And yet, you know, when I think of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Prophet Muhammad, he was not only doing probably all those things, you know, things similar, had all those duties. He was also running a country. He was also leading his and developing a community. He was dealing with delegations all the time coming to him, talking to people about this faith and etc. And that was one thing that also made me question the authorship of the Quran, because if I could only, it takes me 2 years, about 4 or 5 years, 2 hours a day to write a book. When would such a man have time to compose something so coherent and powerful, beautiful, intricate in its logic? You know, that was also a question. I suddenly thought of it as I was talking to you here, as I was complaining about all the burdens that I have. But I won't get into that. I'll just say this, that I can only write for about 2 hours a day.
Through your studies of Islam, what is the Islamic view of Jesus' return to us before judgment, and also a possible Antichrist?
Well, the belief in Jesus' return for judgment and the Antichrist grew up in developed in the Christian religion. The vast majority of Muslims, and I don't know if they've been affected by Christian converts or whatever, but the vast majority of Muslims, I think, accept that to some degree. There are some that didn't. There were some Muslim commentators and some Muslim rationalists in the early history of Islam that did not accept those two things you mentioned. They're not what Muslim scholars used to call essential beliefs. You know, the most you could say about them is the majority of Muslims believe in them, and they interpret certain 1 or 2 verses in the Quran and think that it's pointing to them. There have been other Muslim scholars, and even modern-day Muslim scholars, like Muhammad Assad, for example, and others, who have not accepted that and felt that that came from Christian influence, the influence of Christian converts. I personally have my doubts about it, but again, that's not, you know, I'm in a minority in that, but I have my own arguments, which I don't want to get into now. But, you know, it is I would say in the Muslim circles, it is a debatable point in the sense that it's not something that another Muslim would say, you're outside the boundaries of this faith.
How do you feel about music in regards to Islamic law? Good or bad, right or wrong?
Good or bad, right or wrong? Yeah, this is something that has been debated a lot in the United States, especially among the African American Muslims. I've never really gotten into, I mean, to be honest with you, all these practical type of questions, they've never really interested me. I'm not a practical thinker. You know, I don't like applications. And not that I don't like applications, I just don't have a mind for it. I've always sort of been sort of a theoretical type. You know, I like pure mathematics. Applied mathematics has always bored me. You know, so I'm not very good at getting down to earth on such issues. I've never really explored it very much. I'll say this much, that, and I think an argument can be made, an argument has been made against music, certainly in the past, by some Muslim scholars and some eminent ones. And arguments have been made on the other side too, that music, as long as it's not obscene, you know, or songs or etc., that do not violate Islamic principles, you know, if that's the case, then they're okay. I've heard arguments on both sides. I've heard the hadiths that were summoned on both sides, and some are authentic, some are not. A lot of it is a matter of interpretation. these are issues that, I tell you the truth, I get a little bored with. I'm sorry.